Welcome back, everybody, for another Deep Dive. And today, we're tackling a pretty tough topic, the LA wildfires. So we're going to be going beyond the headlines and using these AP News articles to really get a sense of the human impact of all this and kind of what the challenges are going forward. We're talking about multiple fires here. The Palisades and Eaton fires are the biggest ones, and the devastation is just massive. We're looking at least 25 lives lost at this point, thousands of homes destroyed, and these Santa Ana winds, they're really not making anything easier.
It's a really fluid situation, and the impact, it extends so far beyond just the numbers you see in the headlines. If you think about the people behind those statistics, the families that have been displaced, lives completely disrupted, and a community that's trying to come to terms with this tremendous loss.
Yeah, you start to think about the individual stories, and it really hits home. Like Delise Curry, this 95-year-old woman who lost her life in the Eaton fire. It's tragic on its own, but then you learn about her life, and it's just this other layer of heartbreak.
She had this incredible connection to Hollywood's golden age. Think about this. She backed up Pearl Bailey. She was an extra in Lady Sings the Blues. She even had a mentor who was the first Black woman to sign a movie contract. It just makes you realize, each of these lives lost represents a whole network of experiences, a unique history that's just gone.
It's true. It's a good reminder that behind those statistics, there are real people with full and complex lives. And sadly, Delise's story is just one of many. There are still so many families out there that are desperately searching for their loved ones. There are over 24 people still unaccounted for.
The LA County Sheriff has said they're going to keep searching. But the uncertainty for those families, I can't imagine.
It must be agonizing, even for those who made it out okay.
Yeah.
That emotional toll is just immeasurable. Take the Johnson family, for instance. Their house was spared while their entire neighborhood burned to the ground. I read that they were literally praying with pastors outside their home, just surrounded by all this devastation.
What a scene that must have been.
I know. I can't imagine what kind of emotional roller coaster they're going through. Relieved that their home survived, but surrounded by such immense loss.
And speaking of immense, these fires are something else. The National Weather Service issued a particularly dangerous situation warning, and also red flag warnings, which I'm assuming are pretty serious.
Oh yeah, they don't issue those warnings lightly. A particularly dangerous situation warning. That means we're looking at a really significant threat to life and property because of how extreme the fire behavior is. And then you combine that with the current weather conditions. We're talking flames shooting up 3 to 5 stories high, fueled by those relentless Santa Ana winds.
Wow.
And then the terrain itself makes it hard for firefighters to get in there. And then you throw in the risk of fire tornadoes. It's just a recipe for disaster.
Well, hold on. Fire tornadoes. What exactly are those, and why are they so dangerous? So you can think of it like this. A wildfire that's so intense, it starts to create its own weather patterns. So these fire tornadoes, they're sometimes called fire whirls, but what they do is they suck in air, and that intensifies the blaze, creates these swirling winds that are super unpredictable, and they can literally fling burning debris everywhere, which makes it nearly impossible for firefighters to even get close and try to control the fire.
Okay, so it's literally like a scene from a disaster movie. And on top of that, they're not just battling the flames and the wind, right? We've got down power lines, broken gas lines, and the wind is constantly shifting. I read one quote from a firefighter who said, there will be some dicey situations here for some firefighters. That seems like a bit of an understatement given everything you just described.
Yeah. These firefighters are true heroes. They're putting their lives on the line every single day, facing incredibly challenging and dangerous situations. And we can't forget the just sheer scale of this disaster. Over 63.5 square miles have burned. More than 12,000 structures are damaged or destroyed. Each one of those representing a piece of someone's life, their home, their business, their memories.
It really is a stark reminder of the power of nature and how fragile the lives we build can be. So with all this destruction, where do the recovery efforts even begin? It's hard to imagine rebuilding from something this massive.
Yeah, it's a monumental task for sure. But, even amidst all this devastation, there are glimmers of hope. The Eaton fire is 45% contained. The Palisades fire is at 19%. And the Hearst fire is almost fully contained, 97%. And then the new Auto fire, that one's at 47% containment. So, progress is being made.
That's good to hear. But what about the people who have lost everything? Where do they even start to pick up the pieces?
Well, FEMA has already stepped in. They've dispersed over $8 million for immediate needs, things like food and shelter. All the essentials you need when you've suddenly lost everything. That's a crucial lifeline right now. And then looking ahead, The Small Business Administration is offering low-interest loans to help individuals and businesses get back on their feet.
Those resources are so important, but I imagine navigating all that can feel overwhelming, especially when you're in the middle of such a personal crisis.
Absolutely. It's a lot to process. That's why they've set up these disaster recovery centers all across the affected areas. And they offer a whole range of services, not just financial aid. They also provide legal aid, emotional support, help with replacing documents. It's really about trying to address the many needs of those who have been affected, not just throwing money at the problem.
It sounds like a true community effort, everyone coming together to support those in need. And these wildfires seem to have had this ripple effect, reaching far beyond the immediate fire zone, impacting everything from sports and entertainment, even the political landscape.
That's right. I mean, the NBA had to reschedule several Lakers and Clippers games. Can you imagine trying to coordinate all those changes?
Oh my gosh.
I can't even imagine.
And then there's Hollywood's award season. That's facing some major adjustments as well.
The Grammys, for example. They're shifting their focus to wildfire relief efforts, and they're going to be honoring the first responders. It's a good reminder that even amidst all the glitz and glam, real-life events have a way of demanding our attention.
Absolutely. And it's not just about, adjusting schedules and changing the focus. This tragedy has also sparked some important political conversations. Vice President Kamala Harris, for instance, she's publicly criticized insurance companies for canceling coverage and making it harder for people to get insured, especially in communities of color and in these areas that are prone to wildfires.
That's a crucial issue to address. If people can't get insurance, how are they supposed to rebuild their lives and protect themselves in the future? Exactly. It raises these bigger questions about who's really bearing the burden of these wildfires, as they become more frequent and more intense. Is it individuals? Is it the insurance companies? Is it the government? How do we create a system that's more equitable, one that doesn't leave these vulnerable communities behind?
It's a complex issue for sure. No easy answers. But it's a conversation that needs to be had. And as inspiring as it is to see the community coming together to support each other, we can't ignore the fact that there's often a darker side of these disasters.
Sadly, you're right. There have been reports of looting and burglary, even price gouging, people taking advantage of those who are already suffering. It's a reminder that even in the face of tragedy, some people will exploit the situation for their own gain.
It's so disheartening to think that people would prey on others at a time like this.
I know, and it goes beyond those immediate crimes. There have also been arrests related to the fires themselves. 2 people suspected of arson. One of them apparently admitted to starting a fire because he liked the smell of burning leaves. Another one allegedly said she enjoyed causing chaos and destruction.
It's just chilling. It's hard to wrap my head around that.
It is. And then you have the scams, the ones that prey on people's desperation. The SEC actually issued a warning about wildfire-related investment scams, urging people to be really careful, do their research before giving anyone any money.
So on one hand, we've got these incredible firefighters risking their lives, communities rallying to support each other, and this long road to recovery ahead. And then on the other hand, we've got these acts of exploitation and malice. It's a lot to take in.
It is. It's complex, it's multifaceted, and it demands our attention, our compassion, our critical thinking. We're seeing the best and worst of humanity here. And the question is, what lessons can we learn from this? How do we move forward? Not just in terms of the immediate recovery, but in terms of how we prevent these kinds of tragedies in the future.
Yeah, it feels like we're at this crossroads, trying to make sense of this tragedy, but also looking ahead to what we can learn from it all. We know these wildfires are becoming more common, more intense, so it's not just about reacting to what's happening now. It's about being proactive and preparing for what might come next.
Right. We need to shift from a reactive mindset to a proactive one. And to do that, we really need to look at the bigger picture. Think about things like climate change, urban planning, community preparedness.
It's easy to feel overwhelmed by all of it, especially when you see those images of the devastation on the news. So what can we do as individuals to actually make a difference?
Well, it's understandable to feel overwhelmed, but even small actions can have a ripple effect for those who are able to. Donating to relief organizations is a great place to start. Places like the American Red Cross, the Center for Disaster Philanthropy, the Institute for Nonprofit News. That's a tangible way to help.
Donating is definitely something I've been thinking about. But what about if you're not in a position to give financially? Are there other ways to contribute?
Absolutely. Spreading awareness is huge. Sharing information from reliable sources, checking in on friends and family who might be affected. These acts of kindness and support, even though they might seem small, can have a really big impact on those who are struggling.
Yeah, it's a reminder that we're all connected in some way. And even when we face these huge challenges, human compassion and collective action can be powerful forces for change. So we've covered a lot in this deep dive, from the heartbreaking human cost to those signs of hope in the recovery efforts. It's been heavy, but so important to explore all these different aspects of the LA wildfires.
Before we go, I want to leave you with a question. We've seen firsthand how devastating these wildfires can be, and we know they're probably going to become even more frequent and intense in the years to come. So the question is, knowing what we know now, how can we, as individuals and as a society, better prepare ourselves for the future? How do we create a world where we're not just constantly reacting to these disasters, but actively working to prevent them?
That's a really powerful question, and one that I hope everyone listening will really take to heart. It's a call to action for all of us to stay informed, to stay engaged, and to be proactive in creating a more resilient future. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the LA wildfires. Stay safe, everyone. Stay informed. And remember, even the smallest acts of kindness can make a huge difference. Oh,